and we are also streaming live on Facebook. We got 175 registration. People can keep coming and joining. So good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for joining this very specific and special, I would say, webinar. I would say the masterclass, because we have the industry stalwart, the captain of IVF industry here with us today. And we are talking about how accreditation supports regulation. And to introduce myself, I'm Dr. B.K. Rana. I'm the host for you today. I am the CEO of QAI. And I have been the director and CEO in charge of NABH prior to joining QAI. And also working as international expert for World Bank and WHO for patient safety and quality. I also have been on the board of directors of International Society for Quality in Healthcare, ISQA, for several years, and currently sit on the board of directors of International Society for Telemedicine and eHealth. So thank you very much, all of you who have joined and or people who are on the way up to joining it to this specific and special masterclass for today. And today we have with us Dr. D Nayar, who is the chair of QAI Technical Committee for accreditation of art centers. He is a chief consultant and HOD of Akansha IVF Center, and also he's the president of Indian Fertility Society. I welcome you, Dr. Nayar. Thank you very much, sir, for joining. We have Dr. Nitiz Murdia, who is the co-founder and director of Indira IVF Group, the largest IVF chain in India, and he's also a member of the National Art and Surrogacy Board. Welcome, Dr. Nitiz. Thank you very much for joining in. We have Dr. Zainab Zaidi. She is a member of Technical Committee of QAI for IVF Art Accreditation Program, and she is a very seasoned healthcare and quality expert for the last 20 years. We have Mr. Gaurav Loria, a very dynamic person. He's the Vice President and Group Chief Quality Officer and Head Operations, Pan-India of Apollo Hospitals Group. 3 distinguished designations. Thank you very much, Gaurav, for joining in. We have, last but not least, another dynamic person, Sudhaker Jadhav, who is the Chief Operating Officer of another growing, budding, and one of the largest chain of IVF centers called Oasis centers. Welcome, Sudhaker, for this masterclass. Thank you very much for joining in. So thank you all. And I think it's not a presentation from any one of us. It's going to be free flow conversation because the topic is such. We're talking about accreditation and regulation. For last several years, and I think I know for last precisely 17 years, when I joined NABH in 2006, we have been talking about regulation and accreditation. And many times people get a little bit confused. Is there any difference about that? Yes, there is a difference between both. Accreditation is a voluntary process. Regulation is mandatory. You don't have any choice whether to follow regulation, you don't follow. You have to follow regulation, or any regulatory requirements comes to you, you must follow. Accreditation is not mandatory. It's a choice. It may be mandated by insurance companies, the payers, or any third party for their own purposes. But again, it's remain the choice of the provider whether they want to go for it or you don't want to go for it. So ultimately, it's remain totally voluntary. And that's the beauty of accreditation process world over. Being voluntary in nature is really sustainable. It's a very powerful and strong tool to deliver the services the way the healthcare organizations want it to be. Now, the question today we ask is, how accreditation support regulation? I again remember long back my journey into quality to promote accreditation. And we have been talking to the regulators, and we say regulators can rely on accreditation. What does actually mean? It means if a facility is accredited, it is taken for granted that they will be complying with all applicable statutory or regulatory requirements. And therefore, the regulators, there may be many regulators, and I can count on numbers that to a healthcare facility, there are hundreds of regulations applies. If you take a hospital, and over 100 regulations apply, starting from facility to the manpower and many other things, some technical, some administrative in nature. And therefore, if a facility is accredited, it sort of become a rule that a regulator need not to check it, because that is taken as granted that accreditation body must have checked it. And therefore, regulators can simply rely on that. And this was also initiated keeping in mind that it can withdraw some of the resources from regulators, as they may not be able to look around every facility for regulation compliance. Second, it can also avoid multiple inspections and visits by regulatory authorities to a facility. If a facility is already accredited and it is deemed that they may be complying to requirements of several regulators, so they need not to be visited by them, and they can just take it as it is. And so today's question we are asking from our experts who are from the industry, who are driving assisted reproductive technology. Very commonly, as one of the procedure is IVF, non-IVF centers or the facilities, that how accreditation promotes the facilities, how accreditation complying, how accreditation complement to the regulatory requirement, which might be applicable to you as a facility. In the wake of recent development, that Art Bill and Act has been passed, but it's just one. There are a couple of others regulatory requirements still valid for any art center. And I will leave it to you to discuss those in time to come. So let me kick a start with the conversation with Dr. Nayar. He is running a center. He is chairing the technical committee for developing the standards, and also one of the largest, I think not one of the largest conglomerate of the professionals and organizations, Fertility Society of India president. Dr. Nar, what is your view on this? How you see that accreditation really supports regulation? Over to you, sir.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Dr. Rana, you see, what you say, that is the thing which the society itself has been trying to do it in the last many years, that we wanted some sort of accreditation for IVF industry, IVF centers. Unfortunately, not there. Like the other countries, you have the EPA there, and similarly, other countries, they have some regulatory where you are supposed to be answerable. But um, here you have to, what is the outcome? Um, it's okay now. Can you
Yes,
listen?
yes, sir. It's clear now, sir. Thank you.
So basically, in other countries, they have a regulatory body which regulate the working of the center, right from the start, how you work, how you operate, how you do the procedures, what are your results, how you publish your result, how you maintain everything. In India, there is no such regulatory body. We have been trying to have some sort of a regulatory body, but at the end of this, we have only that AIT bill which has come very recently. As far as the accreditation process goes, there is no accreditation body as such. Like you were quality assurance, and every individual hospital is having their own so-called quality assurance, but they don't have very clear-cut criteria how to put those criteria in the quality assurance. We need to have a standard quality assurance body which can put the various parameters which should be known to the all stakeholders, that these are the parameters required for having an IVF center. This must should be the area, this must be the equipment, how the equipment has to be monitored every day, how the reports have to be filled in. There has to be a very standard parameters. Until as we develop those and people accept those parameters so that they come forward to go for accreditation. Once the center accredited, we are definitely going to automatically follow the regulation. Regulation which has come up now, they will be automatically followed. Once you do the accreditation, it will be very simple, very straightforward to follow those regulation. There will be no hassle at all. I think the other panelists can give their opinion that if we
Sure.
do the accreditation, probably the regulation will be automatically followed.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for the opening things. I will come to Gaurav. Gaurav is heading one of the largest healthcare provider, Apollo Group, and They have another vertical, Apollo Fertility, and he the chief quality officer of all those facilities. Gaurav, what's your opinion about accreditation and regulation? How you see the sync and linkages of? Over to
So,
you.
before starting, I would like to say two happy thank yous. One to you, Dr. Rana, actually for starting QAI and then focusing completely on fertility as one of the mainstream, which is really good. And why I want the second happy thank you is because in my own family, my sister recently gave birth to a child through IVF, and he's like the bundle of joy, just the only child in our family. So thank you to everyone who has been contributing to IVF from starting the procedure, the service, and everything that we do around it. Now coming to, I'll just like to highlight few of the data points. From the first child that was born in 1978, almost 10 million babies have been born worldwide through IVF. While there are 20,000 art clinics across India as on date, only 7.5% had applied for ICMR registration before the art regulations, and of which only 2% could actually complete the whole process. Uh, if we look at these specific incidents and the adverse events which are related to IVF clinics, they are very unregulated because the whole environment has been unregulated. Even the attorneys who specialize in reproductive medicine malpractice actually have called this as the wild west of medicine, a realm where almost anything goes and almost no one knows what has been going on. So, then the true question comes actually, who is the savior? And trust me, I completely believe that accreditation is the savior for all these things. Not only by having consistent standards which units can follow, and as my previous speaker also spoke about, that how we can ensure that we have the right sizes of the infrastructure, we have the right kind of constitution of the teams, the credentials of the doctors, the processes, infection control. So there are lots of things that actually goes into make this sorted. But obviously there are advantages to any accreditation, even in this case, as it would be any other accreditation, from being a comprehensive review of your system, bringing in a third person's perspective, learning from the peers, because every time a surveyor comes to the unit, they definitely teach us and bring us a fresh perspective of understanding what more can we do. The problem with the fertility clinics is also that there were not many accreditations available worldwide, and for a long time they were counted or handled as the ambulatory care clinics with no specific standards there, which really made it difficult to understand what was actually going on here. And that's when when QAI came up with this whole program, I think it is very valuable to bring up the first dedicated program on the IVF centers. And definitely, beyond any doubt, that any centers would have undergone accreditation would find the implementation of these art guidelines and the law and the legal requirements quite easy, because the whole process of accreditation assessments already prepares the unit for the upcoming situation, so they know where they stand, what they need to do. So I really feel this, that the art center's confidence in its preparation for new art registrations, inspections definitely can derive from accreditation, and as one vehicle or as one changer, or a big movement that can happen in this space as well. Just to conclude, I think it's really hard to overstate the importance of accreditation, especially in healthcare. And if we have to go to a very niche product or a service like IVF, yes, definitely there. But then it's a lot about understanding the processes relating to the benchmarks, and then also focusing on quality of care, streamline operations, reduce the liability risks, and many more. So I definitely feel that this is a very, very critical and an important way to go ahead in this domain. Thank you.
Thank you, Gaurav. Thank you very much for very pertinent point. And I'll catch up these some of the key points which you which you mentioned. And we welcome now Dr. Nitiz Murdia has joined. Welcome, Nitiz. And Dr. Nitiz is actually the co-founder and director of Indira IVF, the largest IVF chain in India. And also he is a member of National Art and Surrogacy Board, Government of India. Welcome, Nitiz. And I think I'm
Thank
taking this.
you, Dr. Rana. It's lovely to be a part of such a great panel. Really looking forward.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'll maybe chipping with you at the moment, as Gaurav just finished his conversation, is about we have been discussing that how accreditation and regulation can go hand in hand. And I, in my beginning, has said that for last several years we were, contemplating the role of regulators in accreditation. That regulators can rely on accreditation. you know what does it mean is that if the facility is accredited, it can be taken as that all the applicable statutory and regulatory requirements are in place, because that's the fundamental for any accreditation in the standard, that all applicable regulatory requirements must be in place before you are granted accreditation. So you're running the largest 110 centers or more, maybe more across the country, and many of centers have already been with processing for accreditation. How you feel that accreditation really complementing the regulators' work, and also how it helps you in streamlining your own processes. So over to you, Nitish, for your views on
Okay.
that. Thank
Let
you.
me just talk a bit about the chronological order in terms of the ART Act. So I think this act was first tabled in the House in 2008, but it didn't pass through. And then later on, the Surrogacy Act was tabled in 2019, which went to the Select Committee, and the Select Committee recommended that uh, the ART Act has to be passed before the Surrogacy Act, and then again these two were put in 2019, which went 2020, and which went to the Select Committee again, and 2021 is the year when these two were passed. So I think there used to be ICMR guidelines which existed, a lot of clinics which followed, and a lot of clinics which didn't. But now, since these acts are already passed by both the houses, and already a gazette notification has come for these acts, hence it is important for all the clinics to follow the instructions as per the recommendations made by these acts. Now, if we talk about these acts, they are mainly aligned to multiple things. The first one being they want to restrict the misuse of this whole technology. They want to regulate this whole industry, as well as supervise what this what the IVF industry or what are the IVF clinics doing. They want to set a minimum standard in terms of the infrastructure, in terms of the manpower, people, as well as the facility, as well as the equipment. They also want to stress on all the stakeholders' safety, especially in terms of the donors and the surrogates. And the last being, they want to cut this commercial angle, which led to exploitation of these donors and surrogates, and also put an put a regulatory infrastructure in place where all the clinics which exist in India are registered in the national registry. So this is overall, what this law of surrogacy as well as ART comes into place. Now, in terms of the regulations, we as a clinic, we as a multiple center clinic, we have been trying to follow the ICMR guidelines from a long time. But I feel that since we have gone for the QI from quite some time, and almost 40 of our labs have already been QI accredited, what I learned in this entire process is that um, you, though the clinics were doing it on their own, but with QI, there was a third eye which came into place. There were a lot of process and procedures which existed but not documented or drafted. But with QI into place, I think those procedures have been followed. Um, there is a third person who has the knowledge of this particular subject, who is trying to go around not just with the process and the procedure, but also with people, also with compliance, governance, safety of the patient, safety of the people working around, also the equipment, maintenance, proper documentation. So these are, a lot of areas which I observed while we went through this QI accreditation process, which I feel that it really adds on, and somehow it gets you ready for this act which has already come into place, and you are more compliant and you are already at the level of the act which which is ideal for any IVF clinic to be.
Thank you, Nitish. Thank you very much for wonderful points, giving us insight about how the art bill started off and got into picture, and then your experience, your own real experience going through the process of accreditation. Just hold on, Jana. I'll come back to you, but I'll go to Sudhaker first. Uh, Sudhaker, thank you very much for joining. And for the house, the Sudhaker is the Chief Operating Officer of Oasis Fertility, one of the largest, I would say, growing one in multiple cities. Uh, you heard the conversation from Dr. Nayar, Nitiz, and Gaurav. So I would ask the same question in the first round: that what is your take on regulation and accreditation? How you see the accreditation is supporting regulation?
Sure, Dr. Rana, thank you so much for inviting me. I think what I'll do before I answer this question, probably let's take 2 steps back and then look at the whole scenario. I think Nitiz has given a very good chronological order in terms of how the entire act came into the system. But before that, I think let's see this entire matter from accreditation perspective as well as regulation perspective, right? So about 4 or 5 years back, per se, first of all, thanks to you that at least QI has come with specific standards in terms of getting a ART clinic accredited. So I think a big thank you over there. So at least a lot of clarity has come in terms of getting ART clinics accreditation in terms of the quality which we are going to give to patients. I think before this, I mean, you talk about, let's say about 5 or 6 years or maybe 10 years back, we just had ICMR, and in fact, I still remember that out of thousands of clinics which are getting operated, only about 650 clinics were registered with ICMR. So that was the only governance in the system, right? So we never had this ART bill per se. Now, I think Nitiz has given clarity in terms of what exactly the government is looking, and then how they are actually trying to regulate the whole ART clinics. I think their objective is very clear. Fundamentally, A, to reduce the commercialization of donors as well as surrogacy. B, in terms of any wrongdoings of the ART clinics. I think that is very, very clear, right? So B, when we talk about accreditation programs, I think, specific to ART clinics, definitely a welcome move. But, I think from perspective of accreditation or regulation, I think, first of all, I think the clinic has to be self-regulated. That is what I think a lot of clinics were actually trying to do. But now that there is a force which is coming up from the regulation side, as well as, a lot of clinics are actually running towards accreditation program, I fully agree that accreditation is the way forward to get your regulations very, very clear, because regulation, as you pointed out very rightly, that it actually is given by force or done by force, but accreditation is a very, very voluntary program. Somebody who is falling in line with the entire accreditation program, I think for them getting into regulation is a cakewalk. It is easier easier thing to be done, right? So from that perspective, I think documentation and then getting the entire thing governed by accreditation program is very, very important. One of the thing which while everybody is talking about the entire ART bill which got passed, I think a lot of clinicians are still under a cloud of confusion in terms of what is going to be the the entire future of the ART clinics. I'm sure a lot of level 1 or level 2 clinics actually have not even started their operations post this ART bill. A lot of smaller clinics are actually shutting up, and then a lot of smaller clinics are actually coming forward to kind of get merged with a lot of bigger players. So that is the scenario as far as the current situation is concerned, right? I would also like to focus on one particular issue. While it's extremely good that government has come up with this entire ART regulation, but I think for me, they are actually narrowing down the window of opportunity of a lot of deserving couples, because the regulation says that the donor cannot give oocytes more than once in the entire lifetime, right? And then same with surrogate, same with a semen donor. While we understand the entire regulation is actually coming from the point of view that they would like to ban the entire commercial aspect of it, but if you typically look at the fertility rate, I think that's something which we as a group we need to understand. Total fertility rate is something which governs the replacement rate of the population in the country, right? So about 40 years back, India had a TFR of about 4. That means the ability of any couple to conceive was 4 children in the entire lifetime. That has actually come down to about 2. It's actually become half. Some of the states where currently most of us are operating, let's say AP or Telangana or Maharashtra or maybe Karnataka, Goa is worst. So the fertility rate has actually gone down to 1.6, 1.5 as well, right? So now fast forward the scenario, look at the scenario in 2050, 2060. If we are actually going by the same pace, there will be no young population left in this country, and which is very, very detrimental to the entire economy, right? So I think these are some of the hazards of the new law which the government is trying to implement. I think forums like this, we should be talking more about this and trying to look at is there a better way of addressing this problem. B, I think as Dr. Nayar rightly said, HFEA, which is a regulator in UK, something like that. Probably, I'm not very sure whether ART bill is going to do to India, but I think if we achieve that as a group, I think that's going to be the most wonderful thing happening to the entire ART space in this country, right? But yeah, net, I totally agree that accreditation and regulation both will go hand in hand, and it is the way forward for all the ART clinics. That's my take on the whole matter.
Thanks, Sudhaker. Thank you very much for a couple of very interesting perspective. Now I'll go to Dr. Zainab, and Dr. Zainab is the technical committee member of QI, responsible for drafting accreditation standards for ART clinics, IVF clinics. And just before I hand it over, that a prelude that when in 2017 we started drafting, at that time 2010 a draft bill was available, which was contemplated by the government. And so those requirements at that time, structural requirements in terms of space, facilities, and manpower were contemplated to include into the standard. But now there is a change, which is now an act passed. Already rules are already framed there. Standards are already notified. So I would like to ask Dr. Zainab, as the member of technical committee, what's the role now the technical committee is taking into including whatever changes that happened in the bill or act is now impacted, and how you take it to the next level of the standard. Over to you, Dr. Zainab. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Anand. Thank you, everyone. It's great to listen to everyone over here. And I think, Dr. Anna, before going to the main topic, I would request to have more such discussion because it helps a lot in actually deciding on the standard and objective element while drafting and reviewing it. Because, sometimes when we sit in the technical committees and we have to wait till the open forum to get this kind of feedbacks. And it is essential while drafting it. And I believe that listening to everyone that we have already, we have always thought and we have been taught that there is only one or two percent of the pioneers who actually start and take initiatives and go for the, experimenting and initiating and taking things forward, and rest are followers. So I'm happy to be here in the group of the pioneers who were first to receive the accreditation and quality. It's so nice to see so many participants interested in understanding more about the accreditation as well as regulation. So from NABH time, we were always like a little bit skeptical about it though internally, but the fact was that regulation used to drive accreditation, and I think that is what is going to happen with the ART as well. So a big task and challenge right now, and over there. So while in the process of drafting, as you said, and at first we had some ICMR guidelines, certain drafted ART bills and standard acts which was there, which wasn't actually notified at that point of time, and there were some international ISHRE guidelines and other guidelines which were reviewed while drafting the technical standards for the country. And the implementation, there were a lot of things which we at the time of drafting of standards haven't clarified in black and white because of obviously not availability of such regulations. And while discussing with the members also, there wasn't any clear answers or clear clarification on those kind of issues. Like if you look at the first draft of standard, which we are using right now, there is a single objective element or a criterion which is mentioning donor management and surrogacy. And it was left open for the applicants to implement it according to the policies, because there was no such guidelines available. So definitely while going for the second edition revision of the standards, there are certain very clear guidelines which is now available in the form of the act. So we are able to draft that. Definitely donor management is one of the area which we are having now we are drafting in a form of a separate standard with criterion on that. Similarly, surrogacy, if it is not applicable, because we are preparing the standard for all three levels, we cannot have different set of standard for different levels. So there would be certain standards which will be not applicable to other setups, but it would be there in these standards itself. So ART bank is being covered in there. Surrogacy, donor management program, those are in details. The role of governance, obviously with the act and regulation, it always increases. So governance leadership is one chapter which we are going in detail and adding a few things. Research and human subject research are some of the other matters which has been covered in the bill, the act. So we didn't have very clear standards, the first edition, so we are adding that as well. Plus, the personnel or the doctor's qualification in terms of being a gynecologist or andrologist or urologist or a counselor or a psychologist, being a counselor, having, those are very clearly stated in the level 2 and 3 part of the act. So those are the other areas which we are covering in these standards. I think we are almost have completed a draft except for one chapter which need to be completed. We have completed the draft standard. In next 15 days, we can, share it for the open review as per your obviously agreement and QA's decision. Apart from that, there is another one of the key area we are still debating on that particular aspect, whether we should have it or whether we will leave it for the open forum to define on, was about the data control and information control activities, because there is IT Act as well, the country has, and that is applicable for a lot of information technology, because we have seen that a lot of information technology is also being used at the ART center for storing, retrieving, sharing, and having a platform for submission of those data. So I think that is one area where again we are going through the IT Act to ensure that it covers all the regulatory aspect of the country. That's all from the technical committee.
Thanks, Dr. Zainab.
I would like to add one more point to Dr. Zainab. I think the most important, perhaps the chapter which you should be looking in, from a QA perspective or even from a standard perspective, is the entire patient rights and education, because I think the regulation has been stressing a lot in terms of the counseling and taking proper consents from the patient. I think if we kind of tweak your existing chapter, existing standards and criterion, that would be good and helpful for all the people who are actually going for this kind of accreditation program.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Sudhakar.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sudhakar. I think if my memory is not going old, is we have a chapter like patient rights and education.
Yes, we have.
Yes.
We
So
have.
Sudhakar,
We have a chapter. Yes,
Yeah,
and we have
so we
covered a
have,
lot
but
of consents over
correct. I
here.
think the tweaking is required because
whatever you said in looking into the act and then how to align with that, so that we don't miss out any of the component which is required. So very important point that just look at what we have and realign with what act is asking. Anything is missing out. So thank you so much, Sudhakar, for that. I'm going to
I
second.
think there is,
Yes, Nitiz.
sorry, just to add,
Go ahead.
Dr. Rana, I think there is a chapter on informed consent in the QA, which takes care of this particular aspect.
Yes, there is an informed consent for certain procedure. You have to have an informed consent process in place so that many of the legal aspects are also taken care of. Because the act is also more focused, as Dr. Nayar mentioned, that is more towards how you control things. Just anticipating that things may be wrong. It's not necessary that things are wrong and every center is doing wrong. Every center who is doing business is trying to do the business in a very most efficient and ethical manner. But however, there are questions which government might be thinking or stakeholder. So that's important. How we can protect the interests of everyone, provider, the receiver, or anyone else who is involved. So I'm coming to the second round, and Gaurav, you there? Gaurav, you there?
Yes,
Yeah,
Dr. Rana.
thank you. So I just asked question that how do you see the way forward? From here when we have the Art Act in place, we have the accreditation, specific accreditation for IVF center in place. So how do you see the momentum from here onward?
So again, I would apologize if there is a lot of noise from the background.
No,
I'm
it's
just
fine.
traveling.
It's fine.
So thank you for that question, and I think it's a very important question. I just heard Dr. Zainab talking about the changes that we are thinking about and making in the standards that we have. But based on the regulation that has come in, and I'm assuming that most of it will also get captured. It is anyways, a lot of it is anyways captured there in the standards, while the other bit of it coming in. I think it's always good, for people to pick that a copy of that and understand. One is that there is a regulation which you spoke about in the beginning, and then there is a whole piece on how do you convert that regulation into expectations, and then how do you convert those expectations into reality that is actually implemented on the ground. So I think all the fertility centers, irrespective of the fact whether they are thinking about accreditation at this point of time also or not, should actually pick a copy of that and then start understanding where do they stand and what they need to do more. Definitely there's a huge gap, and I don't mind speaking on this public platform that we at Apollo, we have taken up going in for QAI accreditation. But the first one is getting so difficult because we are not used to the accreditation for our IVF centers. So we are working towards it. We are identifying what more needs to be done, and I'm sure that once we learn how do we define the processes, once we learn better with the accreditation standards, I think we can do much better than what all we can do there. So I think going forward, it's very important that we start understanding what is needed, what do we have to deliver, what are we delivering, match all these requirements together and move in a direction with obviously moving towards continuous quality improvement, which is the aim of every institute that delivers such a service. Again, as rightly you also pointed out that no institution works towards doing some unethical practice or things like that. Everybody really wants to give the best care to the patients with the best clinical outcomes. But then somewhere or the other, we need to keep a fact in mind that incidents do happen because healthcare is a more or less human intensive industry and not just a product that is manufactured through multiple industries. And we have to keep learning from our mistakes and keep moving forward. So that's what I would say that, is the way forward for all of us.
Thank you,
Thank-
Gaurav. Thank you very much for your candid opinion and remarks about journey Apollo fertility. And also, what I get from you is that that the centers should do a mapping. Mapping what the standards for accreditation and what the regulatory requirements asking, and see how they can merge these things. So I'm sure with the experience that the standards are accreditation standards are well covering those things and the defined well. If it is not, and moving forward, I'll come to Dr. Nayar now. Doctor Sir, what's your opinion on same question I'm asking up repeatedly from all of you, because the difference of opinion might exist, perceptions might be different. When we want to move forward from here, and as a society like Indian Fertility Society,
I see, Dr. Rana, I tell you, I think Nitiz mentioned that there were 20,000 clinics in India. Out of them, only 6.5% could register with ICMR. ICMR registration was free. You have to just fill up a form. Only issue was the form was quite detailed. You were supposed to sit down with your embryologist, with the whole team, to see what all you have got in a lab. You have to take. And even out of the free service, only 6.5% of the clinics register with ICMR. Similarly, now with ART regulation being in place, out of 2,000 clinics in India which were functional, hardly 600 or 700 have registered. So rest of the, you can see the rest of 1,200, 1,300 have disappeared from the map because their level, their accreditation was nowhere. When we're talking accreditation, we are talking of certain minimum standards. It's minimum standards in terms of infrastructure, in terms of equipment, in terms of manpower, in terms of all these things. So these 1,200 clinics who are not even bothered to register, they are just going to disappear from the map. That is one thing. Other thing from this new AIT bill which has come up is you have to have a responsibility in the sense, as per the new law, whatever procedure you do, you are supposed to send all the information to the National Registry. This is what is happening in UK, HEPA. You do a procedure, you do a pickup, you send all the information to HEPA. How many oocytes were retrieved, how many embryos were formed, how many embryos were transferred, and whether there is a pregnancy or not. Till now, there were no such authority in India. So we were just projecting ourselves. Oh, if you look at it, we have got clinics who are claiming 80% success rate, 90% success rate, because there were no authority. Now, probably because of this regulation being enforced, people will be scared to give this type of false information. And you have to have a clear-cut data which you will submit to the National Registry, and then only you can use those data. You see that your success rate is 30%, 40%, 50%. Everything has to be sent to National Registry. It will be a difficult thing. It will be a difficult thing for us also, because we are not used to this type of answerability. But we have to adapt it. Everybody has to adopt it. That is why, if out of 2,000 clinics, only 600, 700 are registered. So that speaks the volume that we have been in the past, where we have been, because we had no criteria. We were just thinking and making a profitable business, but no scientifically oriented regulatory business. No, that is what it has come up. That is why this act is the most welcome. Act has certain issues which can be solved by the government. There is no problem. Like we have been meeting Nitiz. I told Nitiz also what is lacking, probably we can talk it to the government and we will solve those issues. But in per se, this act is good, welcome, because it is going to regulate the whole IVF industry.
Thank you, sir. I think very, very important, and what actually Sudhaker was also mentioning, and that was unregulated till this act was in place. And when we started in 2017, this accreditation program, we were saying the accreditation can be used as a self-regulatory mechanism, because this is you yourself choose and regulate yourself adopting the standard, which are completely voluntary. And I think that's how it is started off. Moving on to Nitiz, is like, that usually what any regulation or act for a clinical facility is actually talk about most of the structures. How should be the facility, the building, how many rooms or equipment, maybe some of the human resources, qualification, most of the structures. What accreditation is talks about is structures, process, and outcomes. It goes a three pillars of systems. So in art bill, what I could see is that there are, of course, structures defined. Some of the processes are also they are defining. What is your take, Nitish, that when you see that the centers are already accredited, how easy or how difficult, I would say both, would be for any centers to comply with any regulation? And any regulation at the moment is the art regulation which already been in place. So what's your view, Nitish, on that?
Yeah, so I think the only biggest concerns that we had, I mean, before we started thinking about QAI was because of the sheer amount of centers that we have in the labs and the number of people involved in doing this critical ART procedures. Um, we needed a third person or a third eye. We needed certain, standards, processes, and the monitoring system so that we can dig deep into what we are doing, so that we can assess and audit our people in terms of how they are complying with the rules and the regulations, and also set up a structure in place where everything is on paper, everything is a checklist, everything is very transparent, clear, and the person who is doing the work at the ground level also knows what I have to follow, what is that is expected from me, what is the minimum training level which is required for me to achieve a particular task. I think all this has come up beautifully with the QI process and the implementation that we have done across the clinics. I think the way forward now with the ART Act in place is to marry what QA has already done at the clinics versus what is the differentiating elements that the ART Act has, which is not covered by QA. And going forward, it will be great to marry both these two things together, so it becomes easier that we don't have to follow two different things. I see accreditation as a parallel a platform to make sure that your clinics follow the act in the proper way. Not only follow the act, but there is a self audit mechanism which exists within the organization, as well as there is a third party who is monitoring what you are doing, how you are documenting everything, how are your processes, your manpower, small things like vaccination of the staff members, uh, how you maintain your documentation, how the IT systems has to be to make sure that the patient information doesn't leak. I think all these minor, smaller points, which the act doesn't go deeper into these points, but they very broadly say of certain aspect. I think it is much more detailed covered through these QA accreditations, which I think is the way forward, and the clinics need to make sure that they have a process in place where everything is SOP driven, everything is checklist driven, it is auditable, it is replicable and repeatable.
Thanks, Nitin. I think this is very important point to touch upon. It's really helps the centers in identifying if there are any gaps in your own practices. There is what it gives you an opportunity to self-check, self-examination, or self-evaluation. And also a third party comes and look at from a totally independent and biased way, which is also again the outcomes remain confidential. It's not going out in the public. It's remain just between accreditation body and you as a service provider. So it gives really a very strong tool. And I think that's what Nitish is exactly meant is a job for Dr. Nayar's committee, Zainab and all members has to really I like the word marrying the regulatory requirements with the standards. Though if I say as an accreditation expert that standards are covering everything, but this is for me as an expert. I'm not considering everyone is an expert, to be very honest. Facility has to learn. So this should be very clearly defined in the standard that what we expect out of them. So that is become explanatory for facilities to use and adopt. So I think thank you so much, Nitish, for
Dr.
that.
Rana,
Yes, sir.
I just want to make one comment, and this is also mentioning it. You see, as per the new act, you are supposed to apply for registration, and after registration, they are going to be a team visiting the center to check what you have written in your application. All the equipment are there, all the facilities are there, all the staff is there or not. Now, in such a scenario, if you have been already accredited by QAI and have that certificate on your board, that itself will be reassuring for this state authority people who are coming to check for your center, okay, because the center is already accredited. So that means the center is already meeting the basic minimum criteria which has been laid out in the act. So that is why, that is how you have been able to promote this accreditation. That because it is a self regulatory. It is not by law. But if it is by self-regulatory, you get accreditation, you have this on your board, the state appropriate authority who is going to visit your center to check, they will be very happy and just it will pass. So that is the USP.
That is the USP, and that's why I say that
USP of getting the accreditation.
that is the regulator rely on the accreditation. Is that what I mentioned in the beginning? That, and that's what our job is now, to convince the state authorities also that you look at this certificate which has these standards in place, you should not be worrying about. So I think that's the job for us, is going forward for a QAI going forward with the state authorities. Coming to Sudhaker. Yes, Sudhaker, I can see your voice, please. Over to you, Sudhaker.
I think rightly pointed out by Nitiz that, I also like the word marrying between the authority, the regulation and the accreditation program. Perhaps, QA as a body could actually make everybody's life easier by kind of, setting up certain chapter standards criteria in terms of, the way regulations are given us, right? So regulation is given level 1, level 2. So what is that you require for level 1? Probably come up with those certain standards. What is required for level 2? Certain standards, certain criteria for those. And then there is a third and fourth element of a surrogacy clinic as well as ART bank. So if you are able to kind of, get those guidelines, get those standards for them, I think we are talking about 4 different elements here from a regulatory perspective. If you are able to kind of, get some guidelines, get some accreditation program for these 4 independent, 4 verticals, I think life becomes very easier for everybody who's there in the business.
Absolutely.
And that's what I just wanted to add, actually.
No, absolutely. Thank you very much for bringing, and that's the job Dr. Zainab and Dr. Nayar's committee is about. Though usually in the accreditation standards, it's not defined what you should be having it. They say adequate qualification and experience. But I think now the time is that they may be considering having an annexer to it, where they define what is Art Bill is saying. Act is saying that you should have MD gynecology with this many of experience, you should have these embryologists, you should have this, that. Level 1, this many resources, this many equipment for level 2 and all these things. So maybe that can go as an annexer for the consideration of the technical committee, so that it become easier for the centers to use, that what is expected out of them, not only for accreditation, but the act view. I'm taking on a different, say, from the perspective, we are just talking about the art bill, and this is what many centers actually believe in terms of regulation. You say, oh, this is the art regulator, this is only applicable to us, that's all, nothing else. But that's not the case. And remind me long back when we started, inspecting hospitals long back earlier, that many of the hospitals were not having the AERB, which is the Atomic Energy Radiation Board, regulatory board for X-ray or CT machine. And most of the government hospitals didn't have it. They thought that being in the government, they don't need it, but that's not the case. Everybody need it, whether it's government or private. And even the private, many hospitals didn't have that certificate from the AERB. So similarly for any art clinic, this is a clinical establishment. And the first regulation comes in place is the Central Clinical Establishment Act, if that is applicable in that specific state. There is a central act, but many states have not adopted, they have their own. So first act, actually regulation becomes applicable to any art center is Clinical Establishment Act, right? Then there are others. You have PCPNDT Act, right? You are doing ultrasound, it become applicable to you. You are generating biomedical waste, so biomedical waste rules and regulation act regulation become applicable to you. Similarly, so these are at least three technical which I mentioned, and the fourth is specific to you as an art act requirements which prescribe very specific to it. So I think in an accreditation, we takes care of everything. You know, whether you are need to register in a clinical establishment in the state, yes, then you must. You have had PCP entity, you can go without that. Biomedical practices, and then now fourth one, if you are drug, if you are using any narcotic or psychotropic, in case, then NDPS also comes into play. So these are all acts and regulations actually apply to any art center, and we in accreditation check it. So
MTP license.
yes, so that's another thing. So this is basically in a holistical approach. It's not just one in isolation, but it takes care of many of your the regulatory requirements which you need to be checking. And what Nitiz mentioned is that self-assessment. When you do self-check, do I have my what do you call it? Valid license, right? Is it expired or not? Because if it expired also, it is of no use. So it keeps you on your toes with a checklist that you have an accreditation body assure it while their expert visit, to make sure. So my question, the last round of questions to anyone, and anybody can chip into that question to take on, is that when the current scenario is that many may comply, many may not, because no one is checking, to be very honest. Clinical establishment is weak, many states don't have, and people are running ID. So what, in your opinion, as you people are running, operating art centers, you see from here that the number like Dr. Nayar and 20,000, right, now cut down to 2,000, then 600, right? How do you see this trend in time to come to adopt the standards, whether it's standards for accreditation or for art, because they are also standards? So how you see it? It's just free flowing conversation. Anyone can chip in.
You see, you have to follow this art regulation. And because you are supposed to follow the art, without following it, you cannot run an ART center. That is very clear. If you want to run an ART center, you have to follow the ART rules which have been passed by the parliament. And how you implement those rules? You have to have certain criteria, and this accreditation body like QA can come in, chip in to advise the center how to go about, how to apply these rules, so that the appropriate authority doesn't find any lacuna in your application. It has to be very clear. There is no escape that you cannot run now IVF center without having a registration. So the previously, what has been happening that every IVF center around the corner in your street, or also they're flourishing, doing some business. Now many of them will just disappear because they are not having infrastructure for the appropriate level, whether level 1 or level 2. So that is important. So even if we have less number of IVF center, but if all the IVF centers are compiling with the regulation, that is the positive outcome of the whole exercise. That has to be there.
Anyone, Sudhaker?
I think, I think the whole idea of creating this law was to make sure that the wrong practices happening in India needs to be stopped. The clinics who were cutting corners, trying to compromise on the quality and the safety of the patients needs to be blocked. And this regulation and the act takes care of that particular part. I am not really sure how many clinics have been registered because that data has already been being compiled. But in terms of the number of forms being downloaded for a level 2 clinic, they're close to around 4,000 forms being downloaded, which is accountable. But the number of clinic registered again is a state data, which I think the national board is still trying to compile that data in terms of how many clinics have been registered. There have been some states which have done exceedingly well, and some states are still lacking behind in terms of the registry part. Um, so I think the clinics have to follow these laws and regulations, and it is good for the overall country as whole that the practices here, the standards here are going to improve, the quality here is going to improve, and eventually in future it should give more comfort to the international patients that this market is completely regulated, and it should enhance more medical tourism, which again the act does not restrict. They allow foreigners and the Indian nationals who stay outside to undergo IVF procedures in India. So in that way, I think going forward, it's going to be a very good platform for India to position itself, which already was becoming a hub of IVF across the globe. And with set of these ART laws and the accreditation, I think we are at the right platform to really be big. And technically, I think India is at par or even better than the international countries. So it becomes, and we are very cost effective and cheap when it comes to the overall treatment cost. All these becomes a very good recipe for medical tourism in India.
Yeah, I think thank you so much, Nitiz. You are absolutely right, and I think the current initiative of the government of India, Heal in India, would promote medical tourism, bringing patients from outside. And IVF industry is one of the area. It's big one, and we are in conversation with the ministry to list out accredited centers in the new portal which is being developed to promote the medical tourism. So I think that's another way of looking at how you really make your business more extended to boundaries, just not restricting to within the country, but based on your credentials. Usually in my personal experience for 20 years, when trying to bring out any insurance company from outside, they say, is your facility accredited? That's the first question comes in, So that's, I think that's big question. Sudhaker, you want to share something?
I think way forward, definitely. I think there are a lot of so let's talk about two sets of the doctors here, right? So one who's doing just exclusive fertility, I think they are the people who would still kind of be in the game. But now there are a lot of those doctors who have a mixed bag practice of, let's say, doing 80% of gynecology work, and then about 10-15% of fertility work. So probably those are the set of doctors who might give away the fertility practice, and then they just focus on gynecology. I mean, that is what I'm seeing this trend in a lot of tier 2, tier 3 towns, because they really don't want to kind of get into the headache of getting regulated and following the entire ART bill, which they feel is quite complicated. So I think that's also a phenomena which would actually cut down the number by about 10-15%. But again, this is a short term. It's anybody's guess to look at a little long term and see how the entire things actually pan out.
Thanks, Sudhaker.
Dr. Anna, just one more thing.
Please, go ahead, Jana.
So definitely, thank you so much for the insight, everyone. Accreditation, as you rightly said, drives compliance to regulatory requirements, starting from CMO registration and other things. So the centers who are going for accreditation, I'm sure the people who are already in the accreditation process understand that preparing for accreditation itself makes you self-compliant, and there would be some little requirement now pertaining to compliance to the regulatory requirement. What I understand from the discussion is 2-3 things as a technical committee. Also, we are taking this point. If Nayar, please also put your thoughts on this. One is that we can have a separate guideline for the level 1, level 2 ART and surrogacy clinic. And second thing, maybe it is the time for us to develop a guidebook as well, because we cannot only take the responsibility of assessing and granting accreditation, but we also need at this point of time to prepare the country for accreditation. So guidebook is something which is also essential at this point of time. We can just expedite and make it available for the others. And that could be one step from our side to promote accreditation and also regulation in the country.
Thanks, Dr. Zainab. I think that's very important. Helping the center in understanding the requirements, because we say requirement, but do are understandable to the people who are going to implement them. So I think that's very important to have a guidebook which can help in centers to understand what we expect out of them, and they can document their things and then they can implement. So thank you. Thank you. Now I'm just opening up for questions from any participants. I already typed in the chat box that if they have any questions. Dear participants, if you have any questions, you can put in the chat box, please. Thank you for Sarima. Thank you for topic. Thanks. Gaurav, you want to share some last thoughts at the moment?
No, I think it's been really very interesting to hear out lot of the experts on the panel today. It all many important and critical points that have been raised. But I think one more thing in addition to what all we have spoken about, which is going to make a difference with this whole accreditation and regulation comes in, is about the whole set of data availability, data validation, as well as data which is available to patients for comparison and understanding. For example, in the absence of any regulation or validation of data, some of the institutions, also they talk about their success rates, for example, being 70%, which may or may not be actually a reality, and that might be not great for patients to take decisions or effective decisions. So I think a lot of these things, whether it is regulation or accreditation, in some way or the other, they will largely bring upon the fact on how we can look at data, compare data, and probably it might be a little early to say now, but probably in the due course of time, start comparing data across organizations to see which ones are doing better, and what we can learn from others, and it's easy for patients to choose which one they would want to go to for effective and efficient outcomes. Thank you.
Thank you, Gaurav. I think I get a sense, very important. It's about benchmarking. As we move forward, as we get more and more partners into the process, and then have a benchmarking, how you define, and of course, as we define the indicators, indicators, how to measure them, and then codifying them so that it is anonymized, and then say, yes, what you say about your success rate, for example, very commonly used word, your success rate, and then other success rates, and then we can learn from each other. I think that's benchmarking with confidentiality maintained is, again, the next step for us as we move forward. I don't see any questions coming up in the chat. Thank you very much. Would be more interested to participate in future also. Yes, thank you so much. So I think with this, we really come to an conclusion of, and I would like to thank Dr. Nayar, Dr. Nitiz, Sudhaker, Gaurav, Dr. Zainab, and all the participants for their participation. And in fact, the idea behind this masterclass, I would say, was to bring people together to have a conversation started. Because as I see in healthcare industry, in hospital and all, there are a lot of noise going on for last several years. In IVF, there is a noise, but it is for different reason. Not for a reason which we should be talking about the technicalities, how we really can learn from each other, how we can really advance, from the experience of each other, and then build on them, and then move to the next level. So I think this is a good beginning, I would say, bringing you all the industry leaders, captains, I would say, running the largest chains in the country, reputable chains in the country. And we really look forward to continue your support as we move forward, because you are the people who can send message across. You are the people who are really doing it. We are just supporting and facilitating and implementing the standards and granting accreditation, but you are the one who really use them, use the standards, and what is easy, what is difficult. So that's and that's how the standard evolved. Maybe some standard, maybe we have to cut short, some standard we have to step up, some to modify. That's how the practice of standard development is, from the expectations and the experiences of the users, what we collect from. So I think, thank you once again to all of you. You have taken your time out. I know you're pretty busy. but it's really, I'm really honored to host you all, delighted to have you, and grateful to your presence, and most importantly, your candid opinions and sharing your thoughts about the topic. So once again, on behalf of QAI board, I would like to thank you, each one of you and each participants, for your participations, making it a success, at least to begin with, from somewhere in our understanding of the requirements from the bill, the act, what is expected, and also some other regulatory requirements which might be applicable to you as a clinical establishment. So with this, I would like to take this opportunity to thank you once again. Namaskar, Jai Hind. Thank you, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Just before you go, just before you go, may I request to switch on your videos if you can click the picture, please. All of you who are there attending, can you please switch on your videos so that we can see the happy faces? Lovely. That's excellent. So we will be capturing in the 4 frames. Just a moment. Okay, just a moment. So smile, please. This is first frame. Let me go to the second frame. Smile, please. Second frame. Now go to third frame. Smile, please. We don't know which frame you will be captured. So I captured the 3 frames. So I can see the lovely faces smiling. So thank you, each one of you, for your patience hearing and your attendance. It's really make our day. This with the expert, your interaction with the expert. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Nayar, Gaurav, Sudhaker, Nitiz, Dr. Zainab.
Thank you.
Every one of you. And thank you, most importantly, all the participants. I really like the happy faces, smiling faces.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, everyone. Take care of you well. Thank you.
Which means need the most.